you started programming early, but like you're not Albert Einstein out here. You're not Mark Zuckerberg. You're not a prodigy in terms of coding, correct? Like what makes you unique, it seems like, was the blend of good enough at building, and then good enough or great at marketing, and just being an entrepreneur. And the combination is what's important. I think that's important to call out, because I remember when I was on the come up, I sort of had this misconception that I needed to be some sort of 900 IQ gigabrain in order to enter a space. And what I didn't really realize was that, if you just even if you know nothing today, if you just give it 6 months of full focus, you'll be good enough to be dangerous. And that's kind of all you need at one of the skills. And you just got to stack 2 others. And it's the combination of the skills that's really valuable, not having to be world-class at any one thing. Was that your experience, or was it different?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I mean, especially now, like coding is just becoming easier and easier with AI tools. And I'd say my skills now are being able to code has really helped me understand how to lead a team. Like I always think that the most important thing is the Pareto principle. Learn the 20% that gets you the 80% of results. And that's what's necessary to actually hire someone that's smarter than you and being able to manage the team. So I've pretty much done that in all of these different areas, and it's allowed me to build great people around me and put in the systems in place.
I think your biggest skill is your audacity. I think that what Sean left out was maybe the most, like, one of the more interesting things is that like when you were starting to build, I think you made a tweet or a video and you said, in the next 3 years, I think you were 15, I'm going to have an app that does 50 or 100 million in revenue. You said some audacious thing. And then I think you even tweeted that out. And so there's this like interesting combination of audacity to think that somehow you, a young kid, are good enough to like figure this out. And then also the tenacity and IQ and get after itness to make it happen.
We found that video of you in your kitchen, basically when you're, 13, 14 years old, saying, I will do this. Man, you're sort of speaking the words into existence.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly pretty crazy, like looking back that I did that. My plan was that I was going to make a YouTube series out of it, but I just made that first video saying that I was going to make $1 million before graduating high school. That was my goal. And I kind of from a young age, always believed in my heart I was going to do it. I wanted it so badly that I needed it to be true. And I think self-belief has gotten me so far because it's helped me get over so many points of life where I could have just said if no one, I have to go to college before I'm able to do this. Like I have to take a class, I have to get a degree. Like no way I could do it before. But no, I always believed I can do it. I can do it.
You forgot to add the per week. I want to make $1 million before I graduate high school per week.
So you said I always had that, but I'm gonna question that for a sec, because maybe some of it you were born with, maybe some of it you just kind of came out of nowhere. It's just aura, natural aura, as you would say. But me and Sam, we've both been on our little motivational arc, right? Like I was a big Tony Robbins guy. I went to the seminars. I used to listen to the audio tapes and go for walks. And he had this walking series where you would walk. And he'd be like, all right, every 4 steps, you're going to say this thing. You're going to believe this. I'm going to ask you this question, whatever comes to your mind. And it's, I got Tony Robbins in my ear. Yeah. And Sam, I'm sure you had a similar sort of self-brainwashing where you worked on it. You practiced the muscle of self-belief. I'm curious, Zach, I don't know you very well, but I'm curious. Did you work on the muscle of self-belief in any way?
Well, it's honestly a great question. Of course I had doubts. In my head, I was like, shit, this is a crazy goal. Can I actually do this? And I remember there's this one story when I was really young, I was in the car with my mom and I asked her, Mom, if I'm rich when I'm older, I want to do this. I said something along those lines. And then I was like, wait, and I changed it. I was like, when I'm rich, I'm going to do this. And I think I've been always conscious about shifting my language to a when, not an if, even though of course I had doubts. I was like, can I really do this? But yeah, I had those doubts. And the motivation arc, dude, I used to be obsessed with motivational content. I still am, but not as much. But especially, it was the year before I started Cal AI, I curated my TikTok For You page. I would only interact with videos of motivational speakers. And so my entire feed was just David Goggins yelling at me, get back to work, and all these other people. And that's actually why I started my first app, which was a motivational alarm clock where you could choose people. Basically, I identified by watching these TikToks, everyone in the comments was like, this got me so pumped up. I want to make this my alarm clock. How can I do that? And there was no way to really easily do that. So then I was like, shit, I want to build an app because I want this for myself too. And all these people clearly want it as well. That lets you set these motivational sounds as your alarm. And so that was the idea behind Grind Clock.
Grind Clock.
Grind. And thus, Grind Clock was born.
So Zach,
Dude, I would use that now. By the way.
So you're rich. What? How do you feel? When did the wire hit? It's March 4th, Wednesday. When did I think you announced this a few days ago? How's it feel? When did the wire hit?
We announced it on Monday, but the sale actually took place in December. We couldn't speak about it until now. And so the wire hit the same day it closed. And honestly, like, I'm just gonna be real. The excitement hit me like when they first made the offer, like over the phone. But then I was like, wait, but it didn't happen yet. We don't have anything signed. So quell the excitement. And then it never felt as good as that did.
And how long did the process take? And was it miserable or was it all right? Was it smooth?
It was honestly much faster than it would normally be. And some of that was like the timing. Like part of the reason we didn't share anything until now is because peak season is January and February. And so we didn't want to really like influence anything with that.
Yeah. So real quick. Okay. So let's tell the story about the acquisition. And one of the reasons I want to do this is because the acquisition, the exit part of it for any entrepreneur is such a huge deal, right? It's like, literally, it's probably the biggest deal you'll ever make in your life. Most people don't really talk about how it goes down. They don't talk about how it feels. They don't talk about what they did. They don't talk about the ups, the downs, the techniques that actually really made a difference. Right before we started this podcast, you were mentioning that you had watched, I'd made this video a long time ago, actually for Sam's conference. Sam, you were like, you want to come speak? And I was like, yeah. I gave a talk called How to Sell a Failing Company. Now, your company wasn't failing, but mine, I would say was, meaning it wasn't achieving the goal I had for it. And there wasn't like, just huge companies knocking at the door every day, offering me briefcases full of cash. I had to sell the company. I didn't get bought just passively. And I felt like every story I had ever heard about somebody selling was everybody was knocking at our door, they wanted us, and we picked. And I was like, well, that ain't me. And so I had to run a process and essentially create an auction, and it had a good outcome, but nobody really talked about it.
I think the line, Sean, is like a bunch of Silicon Valley like big shots say companies are bought, not sold. And I remember hearing that, and I'm like, oh, so people aren't hollering at me all the time, then I'm a loser. And then the reality is that's not the reality. That is the reality for some.
Maybe for some people, but for other people, that ain't it. It wasn't it for me. I had to figure out how to sell it, and I shared some of the lessons. So you were saying real quick that you had watched that. That was somewhat helpful for you, but can we talk about that? That's why I want to talk about the acquisition, because I feel like it makes a huge difference. Founders get very few reps. You get very few chances to practice doing it. So it's kind of useful to hear stories of how it all went down.
Yeah. Great point, honestly, on that, because going into this, it was my first time with everything. So It was honestly scary and stressful, and I kept overthinking things, but hearing stories was helpful.
And by the way, you sold to a company that's owned by private equity. So it's your first time. It's they're basically, they're pros. It's like sitting down with Magnus Carlsen for your first game, right? This is what they do, whereas this is your first time doing it.
Yeah, 100%. The process honestly started back in May of 2025. It was right before I was like a few months before going to college. And so I kind of was thinking like, you know what? Maybe there's a world where I can be a normal college student and get a normal freshman experience where I don't need to worry about a company at the same time. So let me just talk to some people and see what they're feeling, see if they're interested. So I kind of ran a sales cycle at that point. I made a list of the 10 companies that I felt made the most sense. And out of all of them, we were extremely undervalued, to be honest.
And explain the details. You make the list, great. Now what do you do? You email them, call them. How do you, hey, just wanted to see if you maybe would want to do something, right?
Yeah.
Who'd you do? Corp dev, who'd you talk to, and how'd you talk to them?
So I was recommended that, or I heard somewhere, you lose leverage if you're just cold outreaching. So I tried to get people that I knew to make warm intros, kind of saying something along the lines of like, hey, I think you guys should meet. This is a cool company. I just thought of this. Like as if it was his idea,
right?
Not if it was me asking him. And so he made all those intros, got on calls with a lot of the CEOs of these companies, and a lot of them immediately just kind of shut it down. Like, oh, nice meeting you, but we're not interested. Some even in the email were like, cool company, we're not interested. But then a few, they were interested. We did a few calls, just met some of the team. And honestly, I was surprised that like only after a couple meetings, it was like very quick to get an offer. It wasn't like, I imagined it would be like, I don't know, talking to the team, getting to know them for a long time. But like, you could just, some of them, it's different for everyone, but like a few of the people we were talking to, they were like, this is the information we want to know. Okay, hop on 2 calls with the team. Okay, like this is, a number. What do you think?
Right. And you said the offers at the first round were low. Did you just have crazy expectations? Were they not actually low? Did you have crazy expectations, or were they actually low? It's like, 1x revenue or something. Like what were they offering basically at that time when you thought they were too low?
Less than we would make in a year.
In profit or revenue?
It was like about what we would make in a year in profit.
Okay, wow. So 1x profit type of thing. So you just politely turn them down? What'd you say? And by the way, did that ignite some rage in you? Did you get a little fuel from that?
Well, after that, I guess we did kind of, I politely did turn them down. And after that, I was kind of like, wait, is my company just not sellable? Yeah. And then I was looking at it and I was like, wait, Weight Watchers just declared bankruptcy. All of these companies, like, how much money do they really have in the bank? Are we just not going to be able to sell? Is this just going to be a cash flowing business forever? And I kind of started to accept that idea in my head that we are just going to be a cash flowing company, and like actually started to move some things in place, like looking for a potential CEO to bring on. So like I could step away and move on to something else. And so like the next few months, that's really what I believed. And I think what changed was I spoke to another founder who sold his company, and he told me that what worked for him, he basically explained how bankers work, M&A bankers. You go to them, they create a list of all these companies you've never even heard of before. And like these companies that are about to go public, they just want to roll up all these smaller companies into them. And so they're willing to give you actually fair market value for your company anytime you want, basically.
Dude, your experience is very similar to mine, except you were 10 years younger. And but I think it's a similar experience to many entrepreneurs, which is you build a company, you have these huge aspirations of selling it. And I've talked to so many people who've done this. You go through your first process, massive letdown. You think, oh, this company, like they lowballed the offer, and it's like it's equity in a privately held company that's overvalued, so it's basically worth nothing. Then you go through this process where you got your hopes up, then you're defeated. You're defeated for 10 days, and then you're like, all right, I have to go back to work, and like maybe I'm just gonna own this for forever, so I might as well just like build the company to last for forever. Then months later, years later, sometime later, then you get the second round, you care a little bit less, and your company is a little bit better because you've just assumed it's gonna last longer. And it's exactly like dating. The second you don't wanna date someone or you don't really care, they start coming to you. And so that's this is like the exact same process I've gone through. I have probably 5 to 10 friends who have gone through this exact same emotional process. And by the way, yours was actually faster. I think you said like it was like a low stress. You kind of implied it was like, oh, it went pretty smoothly. It didn't feel smooth, if I had to guess, going through this. It felt kind of defeating. And this is the exact same process, except oftentimes that's like a 5-year process.
Yeah, like that's exactly what happened. And I just resonated with that fact. And then actually, and this goes into Sean, what I was saying before. So then the second time, so I was set on building the company into like a long-term enduring business. It's gonna bootstrap, whatever. Like, let's just figure out how we make it endure long term.
Dude, you're just making a potential buyer like weak at the knees by saying those things.
Yeah. So on that note, we were thinking like, okay, if we really want this company to last, we probably want to think about making it freemium, because any company that's been around for 10 years that's like really big in the app space that I could think of, they're all freemium. So that's what we started to work towards. And you know who's really good at freemium? MyFitnessPal. So I wanted to hop on a call with their CEO and squeeze whatever information about freemium I could out of him. Pitch it as like catching up, but just try to ask him questions about freemium. Reached out, got on a call, and they did not answer a single question about freemium. And it makes sense. I mean, like, it would definitely be not in their interest at all to help us. But yeah, like they actually spun the conversation from talking about that to, okay, maybe something else makes sense. Maybe the company's, maybe a partnership or whatever. And that's how things really started.
That's so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's so great.
There's a moment that in Ben Horowitz's book, The Hard Thing About the Hard Things, he talks about a few like kind of key moments that happen. It feels like when it's happening in your company, it's unique to you. But then you read these books and you realize, oh shit, every company goes through these moments. And so one of them he calls like the "WeFo" moment, which is the "we're effed, it's over." And it's like you'll hit a moment where you feel like you're just screwed. And but that's common. And what you realize is actually a pretty high survival rate from that moment when you feel like there's no survival. Another one I would say is the "no one's coming to save us" moment. And that's not from Ben. That's just from this conversation. Is all three of us basically had that. It's like, oh, so I guess we're not just going to get a magical offer and it's all just going to work out. Like, I guess I have to actually make this company work for me. And there's nobody coming to save us. All right, cool. And that actually just really strengthens your resolve. And so some of these things that seem bad in the moment are actually exactly the sort of dose of medicine that a founder needs when it happens.
Yeah.
Zach, you talked about then the conversation picked up. Can you give us Zach's acquisition corner here real quick? Like, what do you think if you're now advising the next 19-year-old kid who's going through acquisition talks, what are sort of the do's and don'ts of how to have that conversation? Literally, like, do you throw out a number? Do they? How do you react? How do you position yourself or present yourself well? Meeting in person versus doing it over the phone. Like, give us some things that you felt you learned out of this experience.
Yeah. So like Sam said, very similar to girls. Like, you basically want to play hard to get, kind of. You don't want to be too interested. You don't not want to be interested at the same time. So it's kind of like the push and pull.
It's like that. What I describe it as is you could let them know you're interested, but you let them also know that regardless if they get on board or not, I'm going some places.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. What helped me the most was that I had a friend. I actually had a couple people that have been through acquisitions I was constantly getting on the phone with them and they were giving me advice throughout the whole process. So if you're trying to sell your company and you know someone that has gone through an acquisition, just having them help you through this, I think is super valuable. Just to talk through things. Like you said, things are very similar along any company, even if you think they're not. So like, they've seen things that I'm going through right now, and they would give me the right things to say.
You, Sean, or have you guys, Zach, have you seen Good Will Hunting? You've seen that, Sean, of course. And there's this one scene where Ben Affleck, he's like talking to Matt Damon, who doesn't want to go work for the NSA and get this fancy job. And Ben Affleck is like, no, F that. You're not doing it for you. You're doing it for me. You're doing it because my favorite part of the day is that second when I honk the horn to pick you up to go to our construction job. I hope that you don't come to the car because you're off doing something amazing and fancy. You owe it to me. And when Zach was talking about, he was like, I just want to go to college and have a normal experience. There's like all these people that are like, no, F that. You go build this company and you do that for me. You're not doing it for you. That's how I feel when I hear, he's like, he has everything that, in like to my 20s, 30s, that I would have begged to have. You had it at 18. It's so funny hearing you go through this experience because I remember when we were talking to you before, you were like, I want to go to college. I want to do this. And you're the man. You're the best. But in our head, I imagine both Sean and I were like, but you have this gift. You're blowing it.
Yeah, I think you did what we told you, which was like, you go for the social life, but this is your path. This is what you're good at. This is what you should do. Like, don't worry about the classes side of thing. Did you feel when you were in college, like you have two different lives? Like, were they separate? Did the professors all know what the hell's going on? Did they put some respect on that name? Did the other kids know what's going on? Or did you just sort of have this dual life where you're trying to be a normal student and they treat you like a normal student? They don't really know what's going on.
It was a pretty dual life. There were times when it was close together. So as I mentioned, I was living in a house with a bunch of my entrepreneur friends. And so when we were throwing parties, it was like all the entrepreneurs and then a bunch of college kids. And like, we would invite our other entrepreneur friends too. So like the actual going out aspect, that was very cohesive, I would say, which was really interesting, actually. It was the wildest thing to experience.
Zach, I got a question for you. You had what is, I think, pretty normal for a teenager, a college student. You had a little douchebag arc. So you go and you're doing this amazing thing. You come on the pod. You're this upstanding guy. You're this his self-belief, work hard, build this app, doing well with his friends, trying to be a good student, good grades, all that good stuff. And then you're like, you launch a course, you release a video where you're standing on a Lamborghini, you're humping a Lamborghini, throwing money in the air, and we were like, oh, what is this? Where did he go? He went Andrew Tate on us. What happened? Can we talk about the douchebag art?
Yeah, so the guys that I started the house with, the entrepreneurs, we kind of decided at first the idea was, let's just get a house, live together. It's a beautiful city. It's Miami. And we're going to all build our companies side by side and we'll share learnings. And that's going to be great. We'll all grow very quickly together. Then we were like, wait, we're all super talented individuals. Why don't we, and this is a really interesting thing that we're doing. We're all young, having fun and building companies. Let's record it. Let's make some content out of it. Then it became, oh wait, hiring videographers and editors and all the back-end systems in place actually is going to be pretty expensive and take some time. How can we monetize it? And so that's when the idea was like, okay, let's make a course to help other people learn how to make apps too. And then we could continue to do what we do, make cool content, and we're at least breaking even. And a lot of people's criticism on that was like, you're already making so much money. Why do you need to make more? It's because we're business people at heart. We want to break even. But then when we were thinking about angles to like launch this and everything, we decided to go the super controversial route. Like you said, the Andrew Tate, it was like sell the dream, sell the lifestyle instead of sell the product. And it was interesting. I don't think it's definitely not a real representation of any of our characters. We very intentionally wanted to rage bait people. But yeah, definitely, I mean, it worked. It took over the Twitter timeline, but it definitely started a lot of beef with people that might have not been great.
Yeah, looking back now, are you like good move, bad move? What's the post game?
I think that it makes the story more interesting. But if I were to do something again, I would definitely take a little bit of a different angle. I mean, to be honest, there was no reason to even launch on Twitter, given what we were trying to do. Like the Twitter people were not who we were trying to make videos for. So that was kind of just like our native platform. So we decided to take over. But yeah, I don't think it was like the right strategy.